The very first thing we're going to do today to start assembling our clay slab box is to actually make ourselves a little paper name tag. This is kind of an extra layer of security just to make sure that we know whose is whose, because they're all going to look pretty much the same. So please make sure that your name is on it, and then also please write your class code, so your teachers, your grade level and your teacher's first initial of their last name. Just take this and put that off to the side. You're going to use it towards the end when we turn things in. Once you've made your clay name tag, then you will have a piece of clay, a slab of clay, a flat piece sitting in front of you. When you are working today, you really want to try hard not to ever pinch or smush the slab. You don't want it to get any thinner than it is. You're just going to shape it, but you're not going to be pinching it or squishing it flatter. You will also be getting a template. So all of these templates will somehow fit onto your clay slab. Some of them might fit really closely, so if you can't figure it out, ask for help, but they should all be able to fit on there somehow. Once you have your template sitting all the way on, before you start cutting, really make sure that nothing is like accidentally hanging off the edge, because once you start tracing, if you get up here and you are not all the way on, it's not really easy to fix. So make sure all of your edges are all the way onto the clay. Once they are, you're going to use a toothpick or a skewer, and you're going to push that toothpick or skewer all the way down as you slide it across the edge of your template. You need to make sure it's all the way down and not just scratching it. It should be pushed all the way down so you kind of sort of feel it hitting the table, and then you should just be able to drag it around the edges. And if you're doing it correctly, you should have kind of little scratch pieces just kind of popping off the edges. So take your time, do your best. Again, notice one hand is kind of holding the template still, and you guys can feel free to also turn your piece as you cut. So you're kind of just sliding it around and trying to get your clay slab to look almost identical to the template. If it's a little bit off, it's not really that big of a deal. Once you get done, you should have that shape. And then all of these scrap pieces you can just kind of peel away and just make a pile in the center of your table. I will come around and I will collect these scrap pieces. Once you've cut your clay slab into this shape, then we're going to start to fold up the sides. Basically here where these lines are, that's where you're going to be folding your clay. You don't want to cut those lines, we're just going to fold it up. This does take some practice, so if at first you don't succeed, try again. If you have a neighbor that's doing really well, they could possibly help you. The biggest thing is that when you start folding, you don't just want to grab the top, you kind of want to have your fingers be a little bit at these corners, because that's kind of where you want the bending to happen. When you bend, just kind of bend gently. The clay is a little bit dry, and that's good. It helps it to stand up a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of make that side stand up. I might need to take my finger and kind of push at the base of that wall. And again, notice I'm kind of pushing against this hand. I'm kind of using both hands to stand it up. Once I have that one stood up, then I can take this and kind of bend up the next side. So I'm just trying to bend all of these sides up to kind of make them into a triangle shape. And again, I'm not pinching, I'm not squeezing these sides. These should all look about the same thickness as they were. And the last one, I should kind of be able to kind of just bend all the way up like so. So it's kind of starting to make that triangle shape. Again, this is not always easy, so if you're kind of struggling a little bit, that's fine. Now, if we just stick them, they might stick today because your slabs are still wet, but we need to do a very important technique, and that is to score and add slip. Score simply means scratch. You need to kind of roughen up the surface where two clay pieces will be touching each other. That will help them to stick better. And the other thing you need is slip. Slip is basically like watered down clay, but we kind of call it like a clay glue. It helps pieces stick together much better. So if I'm looking here, I need kind of these two pieces to kind of overlap, and notice that mine are not perfect. One's a little bit taller than the other, and that's fine. So I need to scratch kind of the edge of this wall, and I also need to scratch kind of where it's going to go. And because I have to do that on both sides, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of do both of those pieces and these edges at the same time. So when I say scratch, I just mean take your toothpick and kind of just gently do a couple little lines to kind of just roughen up that surface. Same thing over here. It shouldn't take but a few seconds to kind of just scratch. I'm kind of roughing up. I kind of like to make X's. Now, I need to also do scratches where this wall will be touching this edge. So I don't need them to come all the way over here, kind of just a little bit like that. And then same thing on this side, just a few little scratches and a few little scratches. All right, now I have scratches that are gonna touch, scratches that are gonna touch, and now I'm ready for a little bit of slip. Again, slip is simply just some dried up clay that we add water to, and it's kind of like a little bit of like a mud. So I just am gonna brush a little bit of slip, I don't need a lot, onto each kind of part of the scratches. If it drips a little bit, that's fine. And then once I've done that, now I can press these into place. So scratches go to scratches, scratches go to scratches. Notice it's kind of, squirting out a little bit, and that's okay. Then I can kind of sort of gently use my fingers to kind of help bind those two edges together. Now when you're pushing, you should not be pinching and squeezing these walls thin. You should be pushing so that they're sticking together, but you should not be squishing the corners really, really thin. You're probably gonna get some slip on your fingers, that's part of it. So you're gonna kind of work once you've joined them together to kind of just make sure that they're stuck, and even kind of push from the outside, kind of get those things shaped. You can do a little bit of smoothing on the top edge if you'd like, but you're kind of just working on getting those joined together. Once you've kind of worked on smoothing the edges together, then you're gonna do the exact same thing here at the tip. So you're just gonna kind of put a little bit of scratches here and here, add some slip, and kind of pinch those together. Now keep in mind that as you work on this clay box, as you're adding details like crust or toppings or whatever you're adding, it's gonna change the shape. So I would not worry about getting this shape perfect. Try to worry about getting all of your pieces joined together well. Once you attach all the details, then you can kind of go back at the very end and do a little bit more shaping. So I'm just gonna work real quick on getting these edges attached, and then we'll go from there. Once you have everything joined together, if you take your pointer finger and your thumb and you kind of just gently run it along the edges, not pinching, but kind of just sliding it along the edges, maybe even with a tiny bit of slip on your fingers. If you have some rough edges, it will kind of help to smooth them out. So once you kind of get the whole thing joined together, if you want to do a little bit of smoothing on the edges and kind of just getting everything nice and smooth, that would be a good kind of way to finish up assembling the box today. Today, when you guys turn in your clay box, you're gonna be putting your name tag inside. That way I can give you back the correct one next week. And once we get all the boxes made, we'll get them stored together on the trays, and then we'll work on adding details together next week.